Good morning, Stanley. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Errol. I'm doing really well.
How does one become a paranormal ranger?
Well, there was a lot of unique things that came into place for that to happen for me. The chief at the time was very adamant about his officers and their duties and responsibilities. He basically felt that we had chose a career for one of two things, to either help people or to protect people.
Yeah.
And if we were in law enforcement for any other reasons, we were in it for the wrong reasons. So he was adamant about serving the Navajo people and the people that visited the Navajo reservation.
And the spirit guides and keepers that visited, wouldn't you say?
I think, none were excluded from the help that we were there to provide.
Yeah, because I'm a firm believer in transitioning and the paranormal, and I love things like this because it really does it makes it real, and it makes it part of a great conversation, because for you to personally experience it and then to write about it, you're allowing us to step into your life now.
Right. Exactly. And I think that was a big responsibility of the work I did, to be able to convey to the average person that these phenomena do exist and people have these experiences. Can they be explained? Not all of them, but they do happen.
You being with the Navajo Nation, I mean, that in itself that's authenticity. But did you use, when you talked and I'm sure you worked one-on-one with the medicine man, did you use authentic Native American tools in order to reach out and or protect?
I still use part of my Navajo culture for protection and going forward, because I still, at times, I'll investigate a case. Throughout the career that I had, and even my life, there has been elements of the culture where I use that to protect myself. There's also been the use of medicine men with a lot of these cases, where I'm definitely not a medicine man, and I never claimed to be. And John Dover, my partner at the time, the same. We do have friends and relatives who are medicine men, and we're able to turn to them for them to do their job in helping protect people.
Yeah, because I've sat down with John George before, a medicine man here in the South, and just to him to tell the story of all the different plants and everything that must come together as one in the form of energy. So when you bring things like that up, you're sitting with somebody who knows the vibration of the planet. Right.
Well, if you look at other cultures, let's say the Chinese, you look at their healing practices that goes back, like 10,000 years, maybe, we don't know. And it's same for a lot of indigenous and Native American peoples. Their teachings and stuff goes back thousands of years. So it's not something that's just from yesterday. They have perfected a lot of these healing practices.
And the thing is that listeners need to understand that this is more than just a belief. It's an activation in your personal life, in knowing that there is something possibly out there, and it really authentically could be there. But who steps forward? You, the paranormal ranger.
Right. Well, I have a responsibility, I think, to convey a message that these phenomena and experiences do happen. And yes, you have your hoaxes, and you do have people that fake information. Today, John and I, throughout our years as investigators, did call people out on that were faking information and stuff. But a large portion of these investigations did reveal that there was something that couldn't be explained with modern science.
Wow. Is it all done in the dark, or do you get to do it in the daytime as well?
No, these things occurred around the clock.
Yeah.
A lot of it, especially like the haunting related stuff, does occur during the night hours, simply because I think, I come up with a philosophy that during the daytime, like today, when we're being bombarded by the sun's radiation and all of the energy from the sun, it suppresses a lot of the phenomenon of paranormal. And then on the other side of the planet during the night, as the energy passes by our little planet, it creates a vacuum where it allows the paranormal, like spirits and things like that, to manifest much easier when it's not being suppressed.
Wow. I would like to be a fly on the wall when a new case comes in, because you go into a conference room and you just kind of look at each other in the eyes going, okay, I mean, what's the first step here? Well,
a lot of times you try to assimilate the techniques and procedures that you learned as a criminal investigator. But obviously with some of this stuff, you're having to draw upon other organizations' experience in investigation, like let's say MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and their investigators with UFOs, or those investigators that we were assisted by Bigelow Aerospace. And sometimes you have to make it up as you go, because there's no written manual with some of this stuff.
Do you ever run into a moment where you don't want to disrupt, not too far from here, maybe less than a mile, huge boulders where Native American nations would live inside those boulders? And when I go over there, I want to respect it. I don't want to take anything from it. I want to sit there and just listen. Do you go through the same thing?
Most definitely. There's certain situations that you end up in where you're not wanting to upset or disturb the activity or phenomenon that's actually going on. Maybe those phenomena have been occurring for maybe hundreds or maybe even thousands of years. And to go in and upset that would be very disrespectful.
Yeah, because I love my forest, and there's a reason why I was called to this forest. I just don't know. I just know that there's an energy here that has told me, be the writer, be the storyteller, figure it out.
Right. Well, a lot of these phenomena, no matter where you go on this little planet, there have been previous peoples and cultures that have lived there, sometimes for thousands and thousands of years before we come along. So we're new to walking around on this planet, and I think we all need to be more respectful of that environment.
Speaking of walking around, you bring up Bigfoot. I mean, would they say there's even a Bigfoot here in Carolina? It seems like Bigfoot's getting around.
Well, I think these things are a interdimensional phenomenon. I had a haunting case where I had coins that materialized out of thin air. And when you come to see that over and over and over, you realize there is something to this idea of other dimensions. And I think these things, that plays a huge role. I think with the UFOs, they're coming into our atmosphere and environment from another dimension. Same with the Bigfoot. John Dover and I never found evidence that these things were living out there in the forest, like, let's say, a mountain lion or a bobcat or whatever. There was no evidence of that. So I think all of these things are interdimensional. Where I'm at, where you're at, and even on the other side of the globe.
Because I believe so much in animals speak, I really do study the animals and their character. Do you do the same thing in the way of, okay, something's here because I'm seeing the white-tailed deer over here do something that they usually don't do? Or I'll see like a black snake and I'm going, not so normal, Mr. Black Snake. What's going on here?
Well, I think at times different spirits communicate to us through animals.
Yeah.
That's why you have so many references with indigenous peoples and Native American peoples where animals can be a messenger, either for good things or maybe something hazardous come up. I still experience the coins to this very day, and that occurred in 2009 in the original investigation. And I think these are messages to me from some other spirit or source from somewhere else.
Yeah. What about when you come in contact with a skinwalker?
Well, I've encountered a skinwalker, and from my understanding with the Navajo people, the shapeshifter or skinwalker is a part of witchcraft. They utilize this ability to change form from a human form to that of an animal form. But predominantly it's for a negative purpose today.
Yeah, I'm with you on that part. Well, what about shaman? I mean, is it the same thing? Because shaman come with powers as well.
Well, shaman are the healers and people within indigenous cultures that provide that are practitioners to heal people and to help their people. And so the shaman do have to learn everything that there is to know about the witchcraft and the shape-shifting. In order to prevent that from them doing harm, you have to be able to know what it is their practices are and to know about it.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned in sitting down with the elders is that the elders want the younger generation to share the history and the traditions moving forward. Would you say a book like Paranormal Ranger is part of that history? Because you really are in touch with a side of the universe that a lot of people are running away from because they don't want to deal with it. But Stanley, you're walking into the fire.
Right. Yeah, well, as a law enforcement officer, that's what you have to do. You're tasked with, I worked SWAT for years, and you actually, just like you said, literally are storming into the fire. A lot of times you're going into situations where there are a man with a weapon calls and things of that nature. Well, it was really no different for me and John in regards to the paranormal, because a lot of people that were experiencing this were traumatized. Whether it's a 10-year-old girl experiencing a Bigfoot and witnessing this and being traumatized, or a woman that's in her 80s that's encountering a Bigfoot, you know.
Yeah.
So
how do you and John prep? Because I'm a show prep whore, man. I mean, I've got to be able to be a prepper all the time. How do you prep for a situation where you're going to go in to investigate something like a UFO? What are you really looking for?
Well, Jonathan and I both have been had strong spiritual connection to our Creator for me from the time I was a child. So this idea of being afraid of these kind of things, we never gave into that. It's just like with SWAT. In SWAT, you're trained not to allow fear to compromise you emotionally. All you're doing is focusing on your training and the mission at hand. And hopefully that's going to get you through to the other side and when you've completed it. So a lot of it was a similar thing that we applied to investigating the paranormal.
You bringing up your connection with the universe. I mean, right away I'm thinking to myself, isn't that how the medicine man picks the next medicine man, is by walking through the community and seeing who's got that tremendous amount of energy? Do you see yourself as a modern day medicine man in the way of making these connections?
Well, I've never claimed to be a medicine man or a shaman, because to do so is really, it's hard to comprehend what a medicine man goes through.
Yeah. Some
of these ceremonies, an individual ceremony can involve hundreds of songs that must be sung exactly. There can't be any deviation in that song in order to produce the healing out of that. And so a lot of people can't comprehend everything that goes into that.
Right.
I do feel I have a responsibility and as an investigator to be truthful and about these experiences and to convey to the general public that these things do happen. These paranormal phenomenon. My sister likes to say that the paranormal is very normal, and I follow that saying too, because I think no matter where you go on this little planet, you're going to encounter various types of paranormal.
Yeah. Do you name them? Because my wife and I do. We'll sit there and go, Harold, please, we don't need a visitation today, Harold. Go away.
At times, I think I've done that secretly, but yeah.
Do you have a sacred circle that you step within? Because, I mean, that's one of the things that, in my studies is that go to the gates, step into the circle, do your prayer, do your meditation, and feel the universe.
Well, it's similar to how some people are able to use the talking board or a Ouija boards and stuff. And there's certain procedures like opening that Ouija board and then closing it at the end of that session that protects that person and the environment there. And I think the same thing culturally happens when you're in those modes of spiritual protection. Sometimes, like you said, you're stepping from our regular physical world into that world, and you're doing so respectfully and cautiously too.
Yeah. So are you in touch with the History Channel or even National Geo? Because, this book needs to be a documentary. It needs to have like 9 episodes on Netflix.
Thank you for that. And yeah, we're currently in negotiations with some of the production companies here in the United States. Jonathan, you can go to the Netflix Unsolved Mysteries episode series that has the Paranormal Rangers season 3, episode 5 is John and I, and you can kind of get a taste of this visually, the book and what I talk about.
Wow, you've got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Stanley. The door is always going to be open for you.
I appreciate that, Arrow. Thank you.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. You too.